Detroit. FM 88.1 WHPR, Highland Park. WVIE 107.3 FM Charlotte, Amalia, Virgin Islands.
SOS Graphic Design provides agency-quality professional graphic design services from established companies to startups and individuals, creating a simple logo to complete rebranding and delivering visual communication with print media. Everything SOS Graphic Design does has a single unifying objective: to set your business apart. We are at your service. Call 313-342-2166. That's 313-342-2166, or online at www.sosgraphicdesigns.com.
Have you ever searched through a shelf full of greeting cards and still couldn't find the one that echoed how you felt? Well, search no more and call Designs by Deej. We offer birthday cards. Our cards are one-of-a-kind keepsake items that your recipient will want to place on their mantle with all of their other beautiful and treasured items. We also offer holiday cards. With Designs by Deej, no holiday will go unnoticed. Our unique greeting cards are sure to celebrate all holidays. We also have cards for special occasions. We are your one-stop shop for unique and three-dimensional, handmade greeting cards for all occasions. Specializing, we also take custom orders. Every card is crafted with care and made with love. So call Designs by Deej today at 601-451-9536 or visit our website www.designsbydeej.com.
Attention, brothers and sisters, viewers and listeners, coming soon. Your Son of Man Speaks magazine digital subscription. Your digital subscription to the Son of Man Speaks magazine will also include our monthly e-newsletter, both delivered to your inbox. If you have any questions regarding the digital magazine subscription or digital newsletter, you may send an email to Shabazz Printing at thenewnationofislam.com. That's Shabazz Printing at thenewnationofislam.com. Or call 1-601-786-9788. That's 1-601-786-9788. Pick up your copy of the Son of Man Speaks magazine today. With the Son of Man Speaks magazine, you'll receive automotive tips, wholesome recipes, financial advice, and most importantly, a true understanding of the Word of God. Get your copy of The Son of Man Speaks from these select locations: Sisters Braid 2, 18070 Mount Elliott, the Shell Gas Station, 13110 West 7 Mile Road. To get a subscription, call 601-786-9788. That's 601-786-9788. The Son of Man Speaks magazine, dedicated to becoming free indeed.
We love Detroit. We are at where?
Hey, Larry, we are right here in Mount Elliott in Detroit at Sisters Braid 2 Hair Salon.
Oh, I'm talking. Hold on, please. It's looking like Beverly Hills.
Absolutely beautiful. You guys know where my braid. Larry's gonna buy me something. It's gonna be a hairdo, guys.
Oh, what you want?
It's gonna be my hair today.
Oh, my hair.
Not Welcome to this week's edition of We Love Detroit. Detroit. I'm on Detroit's east side at Sisters Braid 2, a beautiful hair salon. I am here with the CEO, Miss Crystal. How are you today, Miss Crystal?
I'm good. Thank you.
I am so excited to be here. Everybody know I love my hair and I love my braids. Typically, you guys know, but you have to tell us, how did Sisters Braid 2 get started?
We started Sisters Braid 2 in 2009 in order to bring back some experience and quality and great customer service to this craft that I love so much.
Yes, wonderful. And it's so clean and professional. And I have such a warm feeling when I come in. It's beautiful in here. It's decorated so beautifully. What made you come and choose this spot? Right in the heart of Detroit, Detroit's east side. What made you come?
Well, we had this building and we just wanted to do something with it. It's a collective effort from the Nation of Islam. And we came in and it allowed me to decorate it and set up like I wanted to. And that's how we got started with that.
Now listen, not only do you guys do braids, because that's what's in the title, but you don't only do braids, you do all hair care here, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the other services you offer.
Yeah, so we offer all phases of braids, but we also offer natural styles like 2-strand twist, scalp twist, men's braids, children's braids, press and curls. The only thing we don't do is chemicals.
Yeah. And that's really important for all year round. And it's so huge now. It's protective styles for our hair, not just for the winter months, but all year round. It is important to protect our hair the best we can. And you do all styles for that. So I love that. But let's talk about the important products that you have. Really well-known products. Let's talk about that.
Right. That's our Sister Shea oil. Yes, it's loaded with 10 to 12 great natural oils, aloe vera, shea butter, grapeseed oil, rosemary. So all those things that soothe the scalp while you're in braids, or even if you're not in braids, those things are going to hydrate those coils.
I love it.
And keep your hair healthy.
And it's done really well, right? You've been on some really well-known shows, right?
Yep, we've been on Live in the D. We've been on Channel 7. We're featured in Small Business Saturdays.
Fantastic.
We have the Spirit of Detroit Award.
She's on the Spirit of Detroit, and now she's on the award. We love Detroit.
Absolutely.
Now she's come around.
Yes. Absolutely.
We just love it. Right here, Sisters Shea is the product. Sisters Braid 2 is the shop. When are you open, Crystal?
We're open Tuesday through Saturday. We start as early as 8 a.m. We take our last appointment around 6 a.m.
So appointments, because you want to make sure that you're being considerate of others' time.
Yes.
And that's something that's very important.
Right. In order to give that comfortable quality service, we feel like the only way to go is by appointment.
That's right.
As soon as you get in, you're getting in the chair, you're getting service.
My favorite. I will definitely be coming down. Back to my braids. You guys must too. It's beautiful in here. Over a decade of experience, wonderful customer service. So beautiful here. I have to say, right here on Detroit's east side on Mount Elliott. Sisters Braid 2.
Yeah.
You have to come down. They got to come down and see us, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we love Detroit.
Yes.
They say love Detroit.
Yes, we love Detroit.
One more time.
We love Detroit.
Hey, another show, Texas.
Larry, what was that so nice?
It was successful. You know, it's amazing what people could do when they put their mind to it.
Absolutely, especially in the beauty industry. You guys have to make sure you come on down to Sisters Braid 2.
It's a zoo
Yeah.
in my own neighborhood.
Larry didn't buy me a style today, but at least I got an appointment for
And
that.
I gave you a small.
All the time.
We would like to invite you to help support the efforts of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. Visit the website at www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. That's www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. We often hear how we need to work together to rebuild the city, and we're actually doing it. You can make online donations and click on links to track the progress of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. And for more information, 313-868-0000 is a local number. Again, 313-868-0000. Support the Unity and Rebuilding Fund.
To make your online ties offerings, donations, gifts to the Son of Man through Cash App. Make your payment to $New Nation of Islam. That's $New Nation of Islam. Or call 601-786-7056. 601-786-7056.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
Brothers and sisters, are you tired of reading the Holy Scripture and not really understanding what you read? And if you're reasonably sure, have you ever tested that what you feel you know with someone that has a different view than your own? Then let's talk with one another. Then let's reason with one another on a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man every Wednesday at 9 p.m., Friday at 9 p.m., and Sunday at 12 noon. On WHPR TV Detroit Live, 88.1 FM WHPR, and Comcast Cable. Why don't you call and discuss the Holy Bible, and if you have one, the Holy Quran, and come to an agreement about the Holy Scriptures and their true meaning? You can call in live on the air at area code 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. That's 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. And now, let's go live with a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just, I greet all of you who are hungry and thirsty for the true understanding of the Word of Allah. I greet you all with the greeting words of peace. May Allah's Salam Alaikum. It was brought to my attention of somewhat of a documentary that's on HBO and it's entitled Year One. You remember I was telling you how it seems like President Biden has been in office for much longer than he really has. Do you understand? Because so many things had to get done. And you know, this country was on the brink of collapse. And, you know, if it pleases Allah, one day I will tell you what I really got out of the experience of having a grossly unqualified man in the highest office that this world recognizes, the presidency of the United States of America. That is not to belittle other people. That's just a fact that I have ascertained from listening to and observing what happens when something happens in America, in the United States, how it dominoes all around the world. And even the last messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he referred to America as being a great country. He was talking about taking of it from the Native Americans. As I explained to you, he said if he was going to come here, if the white man was going to come here and take it away from them and build up a great country like this, he said, I say he should have came a long time before he did come. Many people took that as he was making fun of the Native American, but he was not. He was saying that if that's what the white man was going to do with it, he should have got over here before the Native American got here. Do you understand? And took it and did something with it. So, but as with all progress, the things that are seen are what gives birth to things that are not yet seen. If, for instance, the wagon gave birth, or the carriage gave birth to the car. Every time the carriage maker made another carriage, they started designing them more fancier and fancier. But when it reaches a point where it plateaus, that gives birth to other ideas. Do you understand? So that's the way civilizations are too. You see, even the ideas that I have for the new nation of Islam could not have been perceived any place but here. They gave us a peek into it. This civilization, moving from slavery to freedom, gave a good example of that statement. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal in their minds and their goals and their aspirations, and they are endowed from birth with certain rights that you don't have to tell them they have. Do you understand? They are born knowing that they got this right. And it's impossible to alienate them from those rights without reprisal. Do you understand? And you see that, I'll show you an example. When I was a child messing with dogs, we used to chase a dog. You know how little boys do. Chase the dog and mess with him and beat him up, so to speak. He run from you. And then when you get him cornered, he stopped running because he can't run. And then he becomes so vicious, he put you on the run. Do you understand? When he bared them teeth and started coming out that corner at you, then you see another side to that dog, and you realize that any creature you back them in a corner, they know they have the right. Huh? Okay. So, the Civil War, the war for, this is what I have learned from growing up in this country. Those in power give just enough understanding as they think you need in order to satisfy you, but never enough to make you equal to them. Do you understand? This is what I have observed. For instance, I had to glean for myself. I don't know. Maybe I'm just on the late show. How many of you all were ever told that the Civil War, that was a a short way of saying a war for what type of civilization would exist, or what kind of civilization that would grow in this United States here. Had you ever really been taught that? That civil actually was short for civilization? If Allah hadn't woke me up to it, I wouldn't have known. I was just curious as to had any of you all been taught. We was taught about the Civil War in elementary school. But no one ever told us that it was actually a war. You know, at first I thought it was called civil because it was white people fighting white people. But that got knocked out of the box because Hitler was a white man, and they didn't call that no civil war. Do you understand? And so I had to wait until Allah taught me what it is. You know, and that civil is short for civilization. A civilization war, where one side wanted a civilization that approved slavery and enslavement of human beings, and to treat other human beings as inferior and as not actually human. And another that said, no, we can't do that. And we're not going to continue slavery of our fellow men. That's going to end in a disaster. And so they went to war over it. A war for what type of civilization would take place. And so growing up in this country, that's some of what Allah wanted us to learn. What better way to learn about evil than to experience being under it? I mean, just being told about something is not the same as experiencing it. Tell you what, you got people that have parachuted out of airplanes. If you've never parachuted out of an airplane, somebody telling you what it feels like ain't gonna do it. You're not gonna really understand it until you jump out and do it. Do you understand? So there's certain things you can't learn except by experiencing it. You see? So not only that, sometimes people, remember the scripture says, render to no man evil for evil. You don't do evil for evil. Otherwise, what you are saying is that you condone the evil as long as it's not against yourself. Because the minute you pick it up and say, well, I'm going to do it, but you condemned it when it was done to you. Do you understand? So you didn't condemn it because you thought it was really wrong. You condemned it because you didn't like it when it was done to you. Do you understand? And so, you know, it's many things that, you know, Allah wanted us to learn. That's why he said to Abraham, before he even named him Abraham, he said, know of a surety that your seed is going to be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. And they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also, that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward shall they come out with great substance. Now, understand something. He didn't say, and afterward shall all of them come out with great substance. It goes without saying that when he said, now my covenant My agreement is not with the wrongdoers. That's what he told Abraham. He knew that some of Abraham's seed was not going to get the message. They wasn't going to get the lesson. What is a black man that have been persecuted and all manner of evil been done to him, and then he chooses to become a drug dealer and do the same thing to his people that slavery did to his people. That's one that this trap was set up for. This is a trap here. They call the white man the jinn. One of the definitions of jinn, when you spell it with a G, is that it is a trap that they set for gain. The scripture says this world. Let's read it. Wait a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. I said I always let people that have something else that they have on their mind that they want to ask me or talk to me about, I let them question me so that I can have their undivided attention while I'm teaching. Did any of you all have something you wanted to ask me? So, like I said, when you teach it, you cannot claim to be a truth teller. And if you say you're telling the truth, can you tell it if you don't know it? Huh? You can't claim to be a truth teller if you don't understand what you're saying. Do you understand? Because what if the student requires more in-depth clarity in order to understand what you tell them? Jesus, Moses, David, Solomon, all of them spoke truth. But you wasn't held accountable for what they spoke because you couldn't understand it. Why you think everybody been forgiven? Everybody been forgiven for what happened for the past 6,000 years. But God is just. God don't hold you responsible for things you don't understand. Why you think he told me to come speak to you? You notice in Ezekiel, the second chapter. I was walking with my brother today, and it dawned on me that instead of that second chapter starting with the words, and he said unto me, Son of man, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak unto thee. Yes, it's speaking to me, but at the same time, I can sit down and read the Bible. Come on. I can sit down and read the Holy Quran. I can lay down and read it. Why did he say, stand upon your feet and I will speak unto you? No. Stand upon your feet and I will speak through you. I remember the messenger was teaching once, and let me let you see it. I like to, I like to understand, and therefore, I like everybody who's listening to me to understand what I'm saying. You ask any of the brothers that be around me all of the time, they'll tell you that I always try to make stuff. I try to make sure that they understand what I mean by what I say, that way they never go away with no misunderstanding. So I want you to see this. Just a moment.
He mixed his blood in ours. Oh, do I think Allah frustrates me? Come before you, seeing you so many here. This
people to real peace and true freedom. We are free. It's stamped on the faces of Muhammad's children. We are free.
To rise and go for self. We want our people to know that freeing them, my dear beloved brothers and sisters, who have of people that just the devil. And we thought perhaps that now we want help. He was asking. Right. You can't place there for you to find our help. And I don't know the good to use that word. So I said, he went to say that I am you sit before me. If but I want to give to you
Excuse me, I'm searching for it.
He has to wait twice to see whether that there was any truth in the dream. That his vision will come through. Visible presence of God. Not one day, but years. That's right. If you tell me that you spent years with God, I would like to listen to you. That's right. Man stand before you, spent years with God.
This is not the part I was looking for, but since I'm at it, I'm going to let you hear that too.
If it had been other than God, he would have probably got disappointed. Maybe sometime me telling him, I don't think you really God. Yes, sir. But if it's really God, I won't tell him that. He makes me want to be with him. More and more and more. He begins to change me into himself. That's right.
What is the definition of life? Go back to science class. It must eat, it must expel waste, and it must be able to reproduce. Is that right? That's what they taught us in science class? Well, if Master Farad Muhammad could not reproduce, but he reproduced. He began changing the messenger into himself. Do you understand? That's why he told him he didn't need him no more. Right. Now, let's see here. What you hear in the background is the messenger's sons and some of the brothers who's standing up there with him, talking to him and telling him that they think he needs to lean on something or sit down on something. And they brought a stool up there and told him that the people won't even know you're sitting down. And listen to the messenger.
We want our people to know who they are. We want our people to rise and go for self. We want our people to know that freeing them don't mean for them to sit down. If you are free, get up and go. Lay hold to that which will build you up. We cannot be built up to go for self until we rise up and go for self. Stop laying around nursing the white man, begging him to let you go and do something for himself. I think 400 years of slavery work, I can gladly say that you have did something for him and more than something for him. Today, let us take a look. Do you think that you are the smallest people on earth? No, sir. We outnumber white people 11 to 1.
What is that to prove? Just because you outnumber someone does not mean that you have the power over that someone. Do you understand? There is strength, somewhat strength in numbers. But if that be the case, look at your head in relationship to your body. The body is much larger than the head, but all the power is in the head, because that's where the knowledge is. That is the seat of power. Do you understand? So it's not about how many of you exist. That's the way hyenas and things like that, they think like that. You know, but one lion can tackle 10 hyenas. do you understand? And it is not how many numbers you have. If you ever get outnumbered in an attack, try to find a corner to get in. That reduced numbers right there. Then all of them can't nobody get behind you. They all in front of you. And can't but one or two of them get to you at once. Do you understand? Then you can even it out. So it ain't about numbers. It's about your knowledge. You see? But we are called minorities. It's because 10 people in unity can beat 10,000 people as individuals. They doing it every day. People sit around conference tables. 5 or 10 CEOs sitting around conference tables, discussing what they gonna do to the masses. You know, and the masses are just that. A great mass of individuals. Poor thing. Anyway, I told you, I'm not building a nation. It's kind of like when I was looking at The Last Dragon. Not Bruce Lee, but the little brother that was, and his master told him about a great martial artist. He can make his hands glow. He said, but the true master can make his whole body glow. You see, this world, all these people can teach you is how to construct edifices, skyscrapers, and all of that kind of thing. But to teach you how to construct your character, they cannot. I'm the only one who can teach that. You see. And everybody that's with me, as the book says, if there is light in you, if you glow, then let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father, the truth that's in your brain, which is heaven. The heaven is God's throne. And if the truth is God, then his throne is the brain of man. And the brain of every other creature. So you see how when I teach you things, it's so clear. Yeah. I'm here to make everybody glow. You see, everybody's a star. They got a song saying, you know, slide them something. Slide stone, slide in the family stone. Everybody is a star. I can feel it when you shine on me. I love you for who you are, not the one you feel you need to be. I would say you used to be. Let's see here.
Do you think that you do not own nothing? is against us. As yet, some top men, the white, they are amazed people, having the knowledge, and then giving his wisdom, his knowledge, and his understanding of us.
Well, the sister that you see them keep putting the camera on, that's the messenger's wife, Sister Clara. She wasn't well, and you know, she had been sick for about 30-something years. She had a sick stomach, the messenger said, and she passed away in 72, which was when this lecture was. This was Savior's Day, 72. But before the year was out, Sister Clara had passed away.
To make him to rule us for 6,000 years. Then what happened? He said he saw one coming. That he wouldn't. Go ahead, dear brother. Go ahead, dear brother. His eyes is like fire. I want you, hell is evil white. I wrote myself, the God speak. At the same God. Well, you got to think again. You know they are not. Our time we can't estimate. Paul was thinking wrong. Think over 1,000 years ago. Now the knowledge of them, and you got to know them. All I want. We have, I call them actions. So, did you know? No one gives unto out there. Can you look at them and act as though they were just a dog walking behind a hill to bring them to an order? We believe in the God that have a nature like us. Oh, yes. I set a time for you to get here, but I better not set a time for me to go wait. Yes, that's right. But I'm going to hurry and get you on your way home. We have gone and whatnot. We have built. Make the south side as white people say. They know I never taught sick. Sun's brown. You're trying to sit me down. They know I never taught sick. The brothers here want me to sit down, but I've been sitting down too much already. I'm not going to sit down. Go ahead. If I have to fall down, I will fall. This is no time for us to sit down. We must stand. And if we fall down, we just fall down. I think them for wanting to look out for my health. But I said, I'm not going to sit down to teach you. brothers and want me to be most comfortable as I can. I don't belong for that. Take that thing. Next time I'll put women's up here. Okay. They want me to teach.
Just a moment.
These brothers want me to nurse or sew back. My back is not all that sewed. I had the doctor around yesterday. And if I get too sore back, I'm going to charge it to him.
See how much spookism he clears up? What you going to the doctor for? I thought God was there. Yeah, God worked through people. He told you God is man. You one that's foolish. Is your hand you? It's a part of you, isn't it? Your foot is a part of you, huh? The head of every man is God. Huh? Why? Because the head of every man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God. But then the head of every man is God. Didn't hear you. Yeah, okay. Now, listen to him.
I have a very good doctor. And so he's not going to let me crumble up here. He has a little bag, and that he know how to make the man stand up. What we want to do for the...
So you notice, the scripture says, Son of man, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak through thee. Do you understand? Well, why is that? Yes, he's speaking unto me, because in order to speak through me, he got to tell me what to say. Is that right? And what did he say? He says, in the 3rd chapter, he says to me, moreover, Son of man, eat the book up. Eat that which thou findest in this roll of a book. And go speak unto the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth and began to recite. And he caused me to eat that roll. He caused me to recite and understand what I was reciting. Do you understand? And he said unto me, Son of man, cause your belly to eat. Remember what you recite. We shall make you recite so you won't forget. That's what the Holy Quran says. We shall make thee recite so thou shalt not forget. And I want to make sure that you have no excuse. This is in the Holy Quran, chapter 87, and the 6th verse. Let me make sure it's the same verse in yours, so that you don't think that I'm... So I find it in the computer, but I have to make sure that it's the same in the written in the book. with pages here, because sometimes the pages are numbered different. Yes, it's the 6th verse. It says, we shall make thee recite, so thou shalt not forget. Huh? How you think I learned them songs? I heard them, and heard them over and over, and sung along with them. And you do that enough, and you just naturally remember the song. The music actually helps you remember the song. You see? So, like the alphabet. A child learns the alphabet quicker by singing them, rather than trying to get him to recite them, just dry recital. Because he remembered the tune. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABC. And when they learn it, they come sing it to you. Huh? You see? And he's having fun singing a song that's actually going to be the foundation for him learning how to read and write the English language. To him, it's just a song at first. Do you understand? Okay. So, the recital of the Holy Quran is sung too. They say, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Al-Rahman Al-Rahim. Maliki Yawmuddin. Huh? Now, I don't know the rest of it. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to learn to recite it, that's a quicker way to do it, by chanting it. Do you understand? You see? And that way, when the Mahdi showed up and started explaining it, you realize that that's exactly what's happening. He's actually explaining what you've been reciting and didn't understand. Huh? That's what I'm doing now. And so, the notice now, it says, when you recite, you speak. He said unto me, Son of man, cause your belly to eat, and fill your bowels with this roll that I give you. Then did I eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. And he said unto me, Son of man, go, get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. So Allah speaks through me. I didn't hear you. Now you see why he said, behold my servant whom I uphold. Now you see why they told you to let me be your fear and let me be your dread. And I did warn you that I can be the worst enemy you ever had, or the best friend that you ever had. God and the devil, the lion and the lamb, is standing here together. Who made the devil? And who made the prophets? And who's the Lord of both? I told you, I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Well, you come in here tripping if you want. You're going to trip yourself right into hell. You better take a lesson from the white man. Now, he's a ruler. He recognizes when he's listening to another ruler. You may not, because he made you so dumb. Okay. Now, let's I stopped to It's things that I wanted to bring to your attention. That you must remember that all of us have two parts, like our brain. It has two hemispheres in it. Now, we have a natural, it's like our body. Our body does not think. Our bodies desire things. How many times have you sit up and said, you know, we like to eat, you know. I got a taste for well, that's the body expressing its desire to the mind, to the brain. You understand? And you know, the body wants food. Now it's good to listen to the body, but you must not be one who is led about by one who cannot see, one who cannot hear, and one who cannot think, but just desire things. It is not the body that should be leading the head, but it is the head that should be leading and directing the body. But when the body starts dictating its desires to the head, and the head decides to bow to the body, the next thing is disaster. If the body desires to eat, the more you eat, it's just like the one of the brothers I used to work in the barbershop with. He said, look, Mom, the more you feed a hog, the more you eat. It was a true saying that I had never thought about. But that's the way our bodies are. The body can become a hog. It will, you know, just the more you eat, the more the body will take in and ask for more. Give me more. And pretty soon you just so unhealthy. And the body is trying to get back to the greatest body out of which it was taken. Where do all rivers try to go back to? All rivers run back to the sea. All flesh is trying to get back to the earth. Do you understand? I mean, that's nature. So the mind, that's gravity. Do you understand? What's the root word of gravity? Come on. Talk louder. And when you eat too much, gluttony will take you where? To the grave. Now, how do you escape gravity? The white man taught us how to escape gravity. You go in a ship. You need to build your mind up. You came here with a ship. Now understand something. All these bodies are ships. They are word ships. And you like that one? Okay. That just came to. But anyway, we are word ships. That's what our brain is. Our brain is a throne that's ever on water. That's why we can really refer to it as a ship. And it is a word ship that ships words. Do you understand? Okay. Now, we have a ship already. We come here with a ship. And the more knowledge we put in ourselves, That's the fuel that will help us to escape the gravity of the desires of the body. Do you understand? You know, you get a certain amount of the word of God in you, and then the flesh becomes your servant rather than the other way around. Do you understand? That's why it's so important to let the mind that was in Christ, that was in the anointed ones of God, let that mind take up residence in your brain so that it gives you the thrust that you need to escape the gravity of materialism and of the desires of the flesh, to the point where no more are you controlled by your desires, but your knowledge is in control of the whole body. And then you don't get pulled into the grave so quick. Huh? The messenger said we had people live on our planet. Some of the old scientists, they lived thousands of years. He said, and that some of them, after they knew, now he said scientists now. Scientists are seekers and knowers of truth. Everybody, that knowledge was kept in a circle. Couldn't tell everybody that the word is God, because you tell people that the word is God, they start thinking, ain't no God there. They just that silly. Because that statement by itself has punched a hole in this false image they had of God. And then when you share the reality of God with them, they start saying there ain't no God there. Poor thing. But anyway, this is the day that the truth has come. So you now must know the truth. And you're going to be held accountable now for what you have been told. But as the messenger said, some of the scientists, when they knew what was going to take place on the earth for thousands of years to come, they just decided they didn't want to stay around here to see all that. They already knew what was going to happen, so it's like looking at a movie. You don't see people get up and walk out on movies. Huh? No, I don't want to watch this no more. Right? I got a lot of stuff on my computer now that I done watched so many times that it ain't no joy watching it no more. You understand? Solomon was upset about that when he said all is vanity, man. And you say that which has been will be, and that which will be has already been. There's nothing new under the sun. Man, this is just vanity. What's left? Well, just eat, drink, and be merry and die. That's over there in either Ecclesiastes or where's that at? Let me read it to you. But now, Solomon didn't know what I know. The book told you. Jesus said the queen of the south came from the utmost parts of the earth just to hear Solomon's wisdom. And he said, and a greater than Solomon is here. Yeah, Solomon. According to the scripture, Solomon ain't had nothing on me. Let's see here. Well, I'm just telling you like it is. What was it? Ecclesiastes? What chapter? Chapter 14. Chapter 1. And, remember, Methuselah lived 965 years. That's unheard of today. Noah lived over 600 and something years. Let's see here. This is that's what I told the man when he asked me, when I when I was, he butted in my conversation with somebody when I was in barber school, and one of the Caucasian instructors walked over. He's a youngster. We he said, well, since you know so much, tell me what happened 2 billion years ago. And I looked at him, I said, the sun rose in the east, set in the west. The clouds gave rain. The grass grew. The flowers bloomed. Summer came and fall came and winter came and spring came. And the earth was turning at a 1,037 1/3 miles per hour on its axis. And I said, you want to know some more? he casually walked on away. And I said, well, that's what you get for butting in other people's business. Listen to what Solomon said. He says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Well, Solomon is a king in the nation founded in peace. Why do you think I'm called the King of Kings? Yeah. Jesus is a king. All of the messengers of God are kings. They became kings when they were crowned by the anointing of the Word of God. He called them gods then. Do you understand? So it says, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. You know, it's just desires, things that we desired, got them. You notice, rich people thought that wealth would solve all of their problems. And they discovered that wealth itself is vanity. Why? They got all them billions of dollars. And what are they any more than any other human being? Just a rich, unhappy person. How you know they're unhappy? If they were happy, they would have the ability to make other people happy. I didn't hear you. I'm the only one that got the ability to make folks happy. If you stay behind me, you will find peace, and that's where happiness is. Everything else is vanity. It's a temporary fix, and it don't last. Peace is the only thing that lasts. Once you got that, then you know the score then. Do you understand? Why you think everybody else chasing money and you don't see me chasing money? You see me chasing people. I use money. I need money because I know money answereth all things that you need to build something for yourself. But the truest treasure on earth is the one that you can go to and have a pleasant conversation with. The one that you can go to and come away smarter than you were before you came to them. I don't know. I should say wiser. It's always a joy to go and visit that kind of fountain. Because that's the kind of fountain that when you drink from it, you don't thirst no more for that water. You still have to keep drinking. But every time you take a drink, it's another glass of water. It's not that same one you already drank. Anyway, let's see here. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but only the earth abideth forever. Huh? The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteneth to his place where he arose from. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually. And the wind returneth again according to his circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. You ever where you think they got the idea for a fountain from? You know them pretty fountains you see out in the middle of concourses and stuff, and plazas and whatnot? They making that fountain do what the rivers do. The fountain, a child looks at it and wonder why that fountain don't never fill up. But as you mature, as they mature, they know why the fountain don't fill up. Because all of the water that you see coming up out of the spouts is being pumped up there from the water that's down there in the little pond. All the water that's in the river came from the sea. So naturally, the sea ain't going to overflow. Do you understand? But even now, that part of the earth that some of this water used to be on, that part ain't here no more. And so when it was dumped back to this part, it covered. You notice Greenland. Greenland used to be covered with ice, didn't it? And now you're discovering that there's a continent up under there. You know, it's some good land up under there. Huh? Now you see what the flood did, what it actually did. Yes, it covered mountains. And then now that ice is being remelted because this is the day of battle and war. People scheming to do evil to me. They can't argue with me, so all they can do is wish they could kill me. Do you understand? That's what Allah said. In righteousness, he doth judge and make war. Well, have you entered into the treasures of the snow, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, for the time of trouble, and against the day of battle and war? Not only that, the scientists have told you that there are viruses frozen up there in that snow. There shall be famines and viruses. That's what a pestilence is. That's what a virus is. That this COVID, that's a pestilence. So you keep on scheming, boy. You're going to get what you got coming. But anyway, all the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. See, Solomon knew this. Huh? All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. Told you got a brain that is so small you can hold it in your hand. and so big that you can't fill it up. Matter of fact, the more you put in it, the emptier it gets. The more space is created to put more. Now, is that not a miracle? Come on, that is a miracle. It's like when a baby comes here, the baby's brain is so dense. But then, if the baby starts looking around and the brain, that universe inside, explodes. What is that? What is that? Now it's taking up, it's making space by thinking a curious thought. And eventually, the baby will point. And the mama will say, oh, curtain, curtain. And the baby will speak behind mama. And the more that baby learns, the more it's capable of learning. Is that right? That universe is opening up. Okay. Then it says, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Ain't that something? Now you see how important they thought my birth was. Say, behold, I make all things. How do you come up with something new after trillions of years of recorded doings? The only way you're going to come up with something new is you're going to have some great wisdom to do that. So it says, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things. Neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. And I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under the sun. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of men, to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. You got this world filled with decorated, beautiful things, much like some spiders decorate their webs and attract little unsuspecting insects that get caught up in their web, and all of this life is sucked out of them to sustain the spider. Poverty everywhere on the globe just to sustain a few rich, selfish people. Anyway, I thought I would, this Wednesday, let me go on and read, what was it, chapter 13 or 14? Was that chapter 13? Huh? The aftermath? I thought we read that already. Huh? Didn't we read chapter 13, the aftermath? We left off on chapter 14, I think. Let me see. Huh? Yeah. a CEO as drug lord. I remember that aftermath because we read about Epstein first, and then I told you the next one was entitled The Aftermath, and we read that. So, a CEO as drug lord. This chapter 14. As a prosecutor, what you encounter day after day is a great deal of horrific behavior and its consequences. You have to be dispassionate, unemotional, to the extent it's possible when building a case against someone like Epstein. But inevitably, larger questions intrude. How can some people heedlessly inflict such harm on other human beings? And how do they live with themselves? Well, now you see what brought about the Civil War. Some white people, John Brown was an example. He looked at the inhumaneness of people who looked like him. And he just couldn't stand it, obviously. And he told them, this is wrong. How can you treat human beings like this? I mean, I saw things growing up black people did that just turned my stomach as a child. Other children doing things wasn't enough to fight the boy. You knock him down, then you want to kick him and stomp him? What is that? I ain't never did that to nobody. And I never would. I just look at him and shake my head. But there were rules. If somebody was fighting, you didn't jump in. Do you understand? If it was a fair fight, well, it's a fair fight. But some of them just took it too far. Ain't no one people got no monopoly on wickedness. The white man is the devil, but there's a whole lot of followers of the devil. There are never answers. And to dwell on those questions too long is not a great idea. Yeah, he's right. If you dwell on the inhumaneness of your people that look like you, or the inhumaneness of any people, you wind up hating the wrong one. You wind up hating flesh, as if flesh had anything to do with it. Flesh ain't nothing but a slave to whatever mind take up residence in. And that's the one thing that I had to agree with W.D. Muhammad on, that he made clear in a concise way. He said, the devil wears colors like you do clothes. And I thought about that. And I thought about history of things that I had seen with black people, white people, and all these different colored people. I say, he told the truth there. I just had never looked at it like that. So anyway, I found it is best to keep my head down and do the work. I stayed laser focused as we gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and went about the careful step-by-step process of bringing cases. Remorseless people wreak lives in numerous different ways. Sex trafficking, obviously, is one. Another plague that we dealt with, and one even more widespread, was drug trafficking. The nation has gone through waves of drug addiction involving different substances: meth, cocaine, crack cocaine. You remember in The Godfather, they had a little private agreement. No drugs, but over there with the niggers. And we ain't gonna sell it no place but the niggers. They're animals, let them kill each other. Huh? That was just to get the foot in the door. See, I told you, when people don't care, when people hate any flesh, they hate all flesh. To fake that you love some and hate others, that's a lie. Because the minute that someone and you saw that, the way they dealt with people. If you was the friend of their enemy, they considered you an enemy. It make no difference what you look like. I didn't hear you. There you go. Opioids are this era's poison. 1 million Americans have died from drug overdoses in the last 2 decades, in the last 20 years. Huh? No, I left off at reading crack cocaine. I'm on page 183 now. And after that it says, opioids are this era's poison. 1 million Americans have died from drug overdoses in the last 2 decades, with the majority of those deaths attributed to oxycodone, fentanyl, and other painkillers. Heroin overdoses also play a role, because some people who first got hooked on prescription opioids find they can no longer afford them and turn to scoring heroin on the street. In the years right before I rejoined the Southern District, the opioid epidemic had reached staggering heights. Now, you have to remember something. You saw the Bush administration dealing drugs to the black community, not the Bush, Reagan administration dealing drugs in the black community to fund the Contras. That came out. You also must remember that the word of God said, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You put all of that garbage and that poison down in the black communities. And not only were you killing black people, when they used it, you picked them up, arrested them for drug use. You didn't call it a disease. You called it a crime. And you put them in jail and worked them for free and made money off of incarcerating them, made jobs for yourself. See, this is what you was doing. This is what you sit back and plan and let your leaders do to my people. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was reforming us and telling us to do what you asked, stop moving, trying to force our way into your neighborhoods, stop trying to force our way into your lunch counters, stop trying to force you to give us anything, you didn't even appreciate that. Then you start pushing integration. After all them years of hating us and telling us that we wasn't fit to be on the same, to use the same toilet, as though your boo-boo was somehow different. I mean, boy, this was you've been a low down some, you have been a low down something. Turn my own people against me. Turn our people against the man that cared about us. Then told us to follow Martin Luther King to integration. And when he woke up to the game that you was running and started making overtures towards the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you murdered him. In the years right before I rejoined the Southern District, the opioid epidemic had reached staggering heights. In 2015, more people died from opioid overdoses than from guns or cars. By 2016, drug overdoses accounted for more deaths in 1 year than the Iraq and Vietnam wars combined. These are things that we didn't know. The number of fatalities is only a fraction of those who have struggled or still struggling with addiction and might still succumb to it. And it doesn't account for the families of those whose lives have been destroyed by their dependence on opioids. The difference with opioids, as opposed to substances abused in the past, is that they have a legitimate clinical use. Well, one thing about heroin and that it had a clinical use, especially in war, as a painkiller when people got their leg blown off or something, and so the medic could work on them. He didn't. Do you understand? But he says, and it doesn't account for the families of those whose lives have been destroyed by their dependence on opioids. The difference with opioids, as opposed to substances abused in the past, is that they have a legitimate clinical use. There is, in fact, a great need for them. We can't just clear opioids off the streets. This made prosecutions more complicated, though no less urgent. It also meant that we were no longer dealing only with people whose business was entirely criminal in nature. Street-level dealers, their suppliers, and the drug lords atop the cartels. We had to look at ostensibly respected individuals and entities, doctors, the companies involved in manufacturing and distributing medicines, your neighborhood pharmacy. If you had just paid attention to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he taught you how to eat to live, you wouldn't have needed all these drugs. When I went out to speak in public, a family member of someone who died from opioid addiction would often approach me afterward and tell me their story. It was heartbreaking every time. They spoke of children, parents, and siblings who were left behind, whole families left broken, tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on rehab. The deceased did not lack the will, The drugs were just too addictive, and they were everywhere. I remember one of the sisters told me that she knew a brother, you know, that had she had heard him telling another one after smoking some crack, and he liked it, and he said, "I dare you to like it," and that was his way of saying, "You gonna be hooked after the first time if you like it." Do you understand? So, and they were everywhere, dumped into every state, city, and small town in America. The drugs were just too addictive, and they were everywhere, dumped into every state, city, and small town in America. Lots of the people who became addicted lived steady, productive lives before they fell into a spiral they couldn't climb out of. What did I tell you about the flesh? When you follow the desires of the flesh, the gravity, the pull of the desires, the flesh is trying to get back into the earth. That's where it came from. And if you follow it, it will get you there quick. Do you understand? Their loved ones, quite literally, still could not comprehend what happened. They couldn't square the person they knew with the one they saw at the end. I would listen compassionately, then say that I would do everything in my power to keep these drugs from taking loved ones from other families. And I meant it. I didn't want those to be empty words. Even though Mr. Berman may have meant it, he fell into the trap that the scriptures tells us not to fall into. It says, resist not evil. That's like going around, you're going to collect all of the oranges because the citric acid in them is bothering people. But as long as you have orange trees, your job ain't never going to be over. Doctors they teach us that in order to get rid of disease, you must first know what's causing it. You treat the symptom, but you don't just treat symptoms. You got to find out what's causing that disease. You see, the evil mind that's in your head is your worst enemy. You carrying the devil on your shoulder. They had it right when they say you got a monkey on your backbone. Monkey see what? Monkey do. Everybody else doing it. That's a monkey. Where's your brain stem located? It's on your backbone. It's at the top of your spinal cord. You got a monkey on your back. You got a devil on your back. And the only thing that's going to get you straight, to keep that lion in check, you need the lamb up there with you. If all you got up there is that lion, that's why you so violent. That's why you so hard to get along with. You say you care about your babies. Don't you get them babies none of that stuff, that junk. You sell it to somebody else. Don't you give it to my babies. But you giving it to other people's babies. That's a lion. He's licking his cubs and rolling all around in the grass with his cubs and eating up everybody else. You know, lions, when they overpower another lion and take over his domain, they find all of his cubs and they kill them. That's a beast. The messenger told you he was going to bring you face to face with God and the devil. And you face to face with him now. The lion and the lamb. Yep. So, I knew we had to do more. And just as important, I knew that we needed to be more innovative. The old way of investigating drug trafficking was not going to work against this new scourge. On April 23rd, 2019, I stepped to a lectern at the SDNY office in Manhattan to announce charges connected to the opioid menace. We didn't hold a press conference for many indictments, but there was no doubt we would for this one. Reporters and radio journalists set their microphones down on the lectern. At least a dozen cameras were pointed at me. Quote, "Today we announced the first ever drug trafficking charges against a pharmaceutical company and two of its executives for illegally distributing prescription drugs that help fuel the opioid epidemic." End quote. I began. Rochester Drug Cooperative, or RDC, is one of the nation's largest drug distributors. From 2012 to 2017, it shipped tens of millions of highly addictive oxycodone pills and fentanyl products to pharmacies that it knew were illegally dispensing narcotics. Yeah, probably had hooked up with them. Quote, "Early today, my office filed a criminal information and civil action against RDC. How do you destroy a great nation? That's part of how you do it. Destroy the minds of its people. With drugs, misinformation, so that it will implode, so that the people inside of that nation that you cannot destroy because they're too strong, weaken their minds, and you have weakened their nation. Do you understand? Wake up, white man. I'm not trying to destroy your country. I'm trying to help you save it. I live here. I have a vested interest in your well-being. But if you don't care, it's not going to last. If you want to let people undo the 1776 to 2022 to 1976 to 24 and 246. If you want to let 246 years go for nothing, that's on you. Ain't nothing that I can do for you. Remember, even you've said it all your life. I've heard it all my life. God helps those that help themselves. I will do all I can for President Biden in the way of trying to help him to restore his country, your country. But it's on you. I saw this documentary today. I'm gonna pause this book for a minute here, and it's on HBO, and it's called Year One: A Political Odyssey. And I think I'm gonna play it every day, all the way up through November the 8th, because it's not no whitewash. It don't seem to be a whitewash. But it shows the state of this country at the time when it was handed off to the Biden administration. Man, this country was in bad shape. Thanks to your hero and all of them crooks who helped him. Even when they was telling you after January 6th, they get up and they say those were tourists in the Capitol. I told you what they meant by that. A tourist is someone who don't consider, for instance, people that go to one country. When you go from here to France on a vacation, you are considered a tourist. Do you understand? People who still believe that the South should never have surrendered in the Civil War, who have still been flying Confederate flags, they don't consider themselves U.S. citizens. That's why you saw that Confederate flag being carried through the rotunda of the Capitol building. And all of the cronies up there that wiggled their way into positions of lawmaking and judgeships and all of this kind of stuff to overthrow your country from within. You had better start looking at white people and all people the same and seeing what's really there instead of seeing what you want to see. I know I woke up you needn't think your black skin got any more sway with me than anybody else's skin. I'm looking inside of people. That's where the true friendship is, and that's where the true enemy is. It's the mind that's in people. And you know what the mind, you know what's in people's mind by what you see them doing. Not by what you just hear them saying. What are they doing?
is a stunning moment, Dana. The disgraced 45th President of the United States and First Lady Melania Trump walking to Marine One for their last ride.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and Dr. Jill Biden.
There was huge security issues that day. Fears after January 6th and a lot of steps and precautions that were being taken. We couldn't even get close enough to drive here on our first day. So actually, all of the senior staff all met at the zoo, and we got on buses, and we all were watching the inauguration on our phones.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute.
I was not out on the mall watching speeches, but rather sitting in the Situation Room, watching the secure monitors where we had up on the screen the command centers for DHS and FBI because we were worried about the potential for unrest or violence.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve.
Even in that moment of joy of renewal, people were extremely conscious of the inheritance we had. Thinking about the challenges we were facing at home, I knew that as Secretary of State, I would have to be in some way explaining that around the world.
We'll press forward with speed.
Yes, sir. Okay, you're gonna have to go to HBO and get this yourself, and it's called Year One, and YouTube is not allowing us to stream this, but if you have HBO, go to it. And is that a pay-per-view something? What is HBO? That's home box office, right? You have to pay for that? Oh, well, I can understand that. Okay. Because I'm using yours. so, all right. Brother Michael told me I had some HBO. I said, I ain't got no HBO over here. But anyway, okay, I apologize. But go to HBO and look at it. And it is a well balanced documentary. I don't agree with everything on it, but it's just like one place the man says that he says President Biden promised that if you stick with him and wear a mask, that this thing would be done over with. But what he did not point out was that the people didn't stick with President Biden. To stick with me means to obey me. Do the thing that I ask you to do. And wear masks. Wearing a mask and not getting vaccinated don't work. President Biden even stood up and told them that this is a pandemic now of the unvaccinated. Where do you think all these new strands of this virus coming from? It's coming from people who refuse to get vaccinated, and that virus is working its way into a more secure life. Do you understand? Producing stronger strains. You playing with yourself. Well, anyway, I can't tell you. If the CDC can't tell you nothing, I know you ain't gonna listen to me. So just go ahead. Let me see here. It says, earlier today, my office filed a criminal information and civil action against RDC, and that's Rochester Drug Cooperative. It says, earlier today, my office filed a criminal information and civil action against RDC, charging it with unlawfully distributing oxycodone and fentanyl, defrauding the Drug Enforcement Administration, and failing to report suspicious orders to the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA. At this point, I gave an update on the status of the case. The company itself had agreed to pay a significant fine. Now, I want to say something here. You can't even accuse, put that back up there. You can't even accuse Mr. Blinken of trying to profit from this. He put the book online. Huh? Mr. Berman. What did I say? Okay, Mr. Berman. He put the book online. You can go on there and read it. Do you understand? It wasn't about the money. But as many avenues as you can get the truth out through, you should put it out there. Do you understand? At this point, I gave an update on the status of the case. The company itself had agreed to pay a significant fine. A consent decree called for it to reform its practices and to be monitored going forward. One executive had pleaded guilty and was cooperating. I then continued with news that I knew would send shockwaves through the drug industry. You'll remember that after the collapse of the mortgage and financial markets in 2008, that's what President Obama's administration inherited. From the Republicans, who've been trying their best to destroy this country secretly for the longest. There was tremendous criticism that no top executives were criminally charged. They didn't go up the ladder. In this national crisis, we were taking a different approach. Quote, and today, I said, quote, RDC's former CEO is in custody and will be presented to a judge in the Southern District of New York this afternoon. Lawrence Dowd is charged with conspiring to distribute oxycodone and fentanyl and conspiring to defraud the DEA. Dowd led the RDC during the entire period of the charged conspiracy and, as alleged, personally directed and profited from much of its criminal activity. I continue. Dowd cared more about profits than the laws intended to protect human life. He directed RDC to sell Oxycontin and fentanyl to pharmacies that he knew were illegally dispensing them. He routinely prioritized sales over compliance. For the sales of his product over compliance with the law.
For the first time, a pharma executive, pharma, P-H-A-R-M-A, pharma short for pharmaceutical, I guess, a pharma executive was arrested and charged with conspiring to distribute drugs, the same type of charge used against notorious drug lords like El Chapo. A traditional drug indictment is a bare bones document. It includes the charging language. It lists the names of the defendants and basically says these individuals willfully and knowingly trafficked and conspired with others to traffic, say, 500 kilos of cocaine in the Southern District of New York. That's it. We tend to give no details of how the crime occurred, how they were getting the drugs, whom the drugs went to, and what they did with the money. Well, naturally, you're not going to lay out how they did it so that nobody else get no ideas of how to do it. Well, that's intelligent. Well, anyway, there are several reasons for this. Prosecutors do not want to disclose too much information about who their cooperating witnesses are and what other investigative methods were put to use. A drug case is typically part of an ongoing investigation. You don't want to give away too much and jeopardize those future cases. But on some of our biggest priorities, we believe it was important to say more. In the case of Lawrence Dowd and the Rochester Drug Cooperative, we brought forward what is known as a speaking indictment. Those still sometimes have some blanks. You'll see such language as confidential informant, number one, quote unquote, confidential informant, number one, because of the need to anonymize sources. But they tell a larger story that is meant to inform and educate the general public. Over its 25 pages, the Dowd indictment told several interconnected stories. The explosion of opioid abuse in America, the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration's attempts to regulate the drug and curb the epidemic, the corporate history of Rochester Drug Cooperative, and lastly, the role of Lawrence Dowd in running the company and causing it to violate regulations meant to stop the widespread abuse of oxycodone and fentanyl. We did even fewer press conferences than speaking indictments. It had to be a case that was important to the country, potentially even something that the cable news networks might break into their coverage to carry live. If you have press conferences on cases without great interest and make a habit of it, the media loses interest. And then when you've got something big worthy of their interest, you run the risk that nobody shows up and you miss an opportunity to inform the public. General deference is the name of the game. So we were putting out a message. In the case of Dowd and RDC, the message was that we were willing to go up the chain, no matter how high that took us. When we prosecuted doctors in opioid cases, we wanted to make sure that every physician who was violating the law or thinking about it took notice. And I hope they do the same thing with people who have violated the Capitol building and thinking about doing it again. You need to do something to make sure that they take notice that better not happen no That dirty doctors knew the feds in the Southern District of New York were on their trail, and they should be concerned if their conduct even approaches what they see in this case we just brought. With the Dowd case, we were putting an industry on notice. The press conferences were a whole other animal than the indictment itself. There was an element of theater in them, just as there is when a prosecutor tries a case in front of a jury. My presentation had to be short and powerful, just the essence of the case in a few sentences as possible, in as few sentences as possible. An assistant U.S. attorney on the matter usually wrote up an initial draft, which would be revised by the unit chief. I would then work with the press office and the executive staff for a few days to winnow it down. From my early days as a prosecutor, I realized that optics matter. We always had charts, and they also had to be simple and tell their own story. That took a lot of work as well. The many talents of our press offices, Nick Bias, Biaz, included visual design. And we had the capability to produce the charts in-house. Nick and I would go through various iterations on paper, and then we would Photoshop on the computer, and we would work from that. You know, that's just all teachers, no matter what you're teaching, you must reduce the knowledge to its simplest terms. That's what he's saying. Easy to understand, leaving no doubt in the mind of the ones that you are speaking to as to what is being said and what the key to teaching, the purpose of teaching, is to be able to successfully transfer the idea or thought that is in your mind to the mind of whoever you are speaking, and the thought is received intact. That what you are saying is being conveyed in such way till its meaning does not change when it gets to the mind of who you are speaking. Do you understand? In other words, it's got to be clear. I also had to prepare for questions from reporters, even seemingly innocuous questions, if answered before having been completely thought through, could unnecessarily complicate or even jeopardize a prosecution or investigation. You know, I remember one of the brothers who was a lawyer that was with me once. He said, it's a rule of thumb that a good lawyer does not ask questions that he does not know the answer to. And it goes without saying that a good lawyer, when presenting a case, should have also cross-examined his own case, so he should know what questions will come up or should come up by what he's presenting. And he should be ready to deal with that if it does. Matter of fact, a good lawyer can manipulate, I'll use it, manipulate the questions that are asked to him by knowing how to present evidence or statements that will create the questions that he wants to be asked. Do you understand? Yeah. In advance of press conferences, I would typically spend an afternoon fielding questions from the team, executive staff, and press office. You know, it's just like what they do, but when preparing a candidate for president for a debate with the opposing party. They have someone to play the role of the opposing party. And they field questions. They put someone there that hopefully will think of attacks or questions. That's what the question is. It's an attack. Do you understand? The messenger said, scientists attack each other. And if you can't answer with what you attacked with, then something is wrong. Scientists will take you down the road a piece and have you looking for something to prove what you just said. You understand? So you can't just say anything to someone who knows the truth. Once you're talking to someone who knows the truth or knows how to get at truth, then you no matter what kind of games you've been playing with ignorant people, if you try that with someone who is knowledgeable, it will not work. Do you understand? You come with facts or nothing. All told, it took the better part of a week to prepare for a press conference. Another reason we didn't have too many of them. It took too long to prepare for them. It says, there were always going to be some defense attorneys who did not appreciate our presentations. But the U.S. Attorney's Office is a public entity. We did our investigations with the utmost discretion, but our values and priorities were never meant to be secret. I don't think I was ever self-aggrandizing. It's just that there were times when I felt it was appropriate for me to step forward and help the public understand what we were doing. You cannot claim to be working for the public if you don't report to the public. I didn't hear you. And the one thing about media, you want a nitpicking media. You want that. As long as they nitpick everybody. Do you understand? Because if you telling the truth, it don't make no difference how they sift it and check it. Truth is like the greatest example of telling the truth is addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. In other words, mathematics. No matter how you do it, you can always check. Do you understand? You can be sure of your answer. That's why we unknowingly, we have acknowledged that truth is math. Because we've told people, hey, what you saying don't add up. Add up to what? No, it don't add up to you telling the truth. You see, the charges lodged against Dowd and his company got the response that I hoped for. It was seen as a clear warning to others to clean up their practices. Well, that's all the referee wants when you're in the game. They penalize one. They letting the others know, if you thinking you gonna try holding or you gonna try elbowing or whatnot, we gonna see you. Do you understand? Play the game right or don't play. Huh? All right. The pharmaceutical industry cannot ignore this case. Quote, the pharmaceutical industry cannot ignore this case, unquote. One industry newsletter wrote, quote, compliance officers and their staff as well as executives should view it as a wake-up call. It is the clearest example that the Department of Justice can and will hold individuals accountable for corporate misconduct, unquote. The New York Times focused on the fact that we had regarded RDC as we would a drug cartel. Quote, law enforcement officials have long tried to stem the opioid crisis in America with criminal charges for street dealers and cartel kingpins who traffic in drugs like fentanyl and oxycodone, unquote. Its story the next day said, quote, now, for the first time, federal authorities are bringing the same kind of felony drug trafficking charges against a major pharmaceutical distributor and two of its former executives for their role in fanning the crisis, unquote. I have not yet written extensively about the attorneys in the SDNY's celebrated civil division. They worked in a different building and liked it that way. It was their own domain, distanced from the brass, quote unquote, the brass, as everyone at SDNY calls the leadership. When I announced in a speech to the office in November 2019 that the General Services Administration had received funding to design a new building at First Street, Andrews Plaza, that would possibly have enough space to squeeze criminal and civil under one roof again, there were audible hisses from the civil assistant U.S. attorneys. They had a certain amount of autonomy and treasured their independence. There were roughly 60 of them, every bit as credentialed as their counterparts in the criminal division, and some of the most tenacious, savvy litigators around. Everyone was on the same team. The case against the company, Rochester Drug Cooperative, originated in the civil division, which had been looking into the company's compliance practices for several years. RDC was the sixth largest drug distributor in the nation. It bought in bulk from the pharmaceutical companies and shipped drugs to more than 1,300 pharmacies. Its customers were community-based retail pharmacies rather than the big chains like CVS and Walgreens. Notably, RDC was collectively owned by the pharmacies that were its largest customers, which is why it was called a cooperative. They accounted for 75% of its business and got dividends based on RDC's sales. Between 2012 and 2016, a pharmacy in Woodbury, New York, was paid more than $10.5 million in dividends from RDC, making it the largest recipient of the cooperative's revenue. The same pharmacy was one of the nation's top dispensers of Subsys, a highly addictive fentanyl spray, and also a large provider of oxycodone. The Federal Drug Enforcement Administration has regulations in place for distributors that are designed to act as tripwires to slow the tide of painkillers flooding the nation. If a pharmacy is ordering too many opioids, if its orders dramatically increase, or if too many of its customers pay in cash or travel from great distances to make their purchases, that should set off an alarm. RDC heard the alarms, but at the highest levels of the company, they were ignored. Several of its biggest customers raised all of the red flags, dispensing huge quantities of opioids, often to customers who came from afar and paid in cash. The telltale signs of people who did not have a legitimate medical need for painkillers. Everything RDC did and failed to do was like a master class on how to evade and ignore important safeguards. In the 4-year period covered in the indictment, it fulfilled 1.5 million orders for controlled substances to pharmacies, many of which were for highly abused drugs like oxycodone and fentanyl. The company reported a grand total of 4 of them as suspicious. When it identified quote-unquote orders of interest because they contained too big a buy for opioids, instead of rejecting those orders, it just raised the threshold. Then the orders were no longer of interest. They were just filled. The company maintained an internal list of doctors who had been arrested, had been investigated by state or federal agencies, or had been identified by RDC itself for suspicious prescribing patterns. But RDC went right on fulfilling orders for pharmacies dispensing prescriptions from these doctors, even as it was obvious the pharmacies were likely opioid clearinghouses, sometimes called pill mills. Perhaps most tellingly, RDC did business with pharmacies that other distributors had cut off. It was a supplier of last resort. One of its biggest customers had been cut off by another distributor for a pattern of suspicious ordering. RDC filled its orders, even though half the pharmacy's customers paid cash for controlled substances. Some employees at RDC were fully aware that the company was in flagrant violation of federal laws and tried to warn their superiors. One warned in an internal email that its continuing relationship with one troubling pharmacy was, quote, like a stick of dynamite waiting for the DEA to light the fuse, end quote. Another wrote to the company's Compliance Division about the same pharmacy, asking that they consider, quote unquote, what evil lies within. I was often confronted with difficult choices at SDNY. Ones in which there was no perfect outcome. As part of an agreement, the Rochester Drug Cooperative admitted to its wrongdoing and paid a $20 million penalty. But we made the decision that even as we pursued its chief executive, we would not pursue actions that would shut down the company. Instead, RDC submitted to supervision by an independent monitor, and it reformed and enhanced its compliance practices to comply with the Controlled Substances Act. At the press conference, I was asked why we didn't move to shutter the company. It was a legitimate question. You don't cut your nose off to spite your face. That's the first time. These people are manufacturers of drugs that Americans need. You know, hospitals need, and all kind of things that they need. So, but anyway, but my reasoning was, if the criminal behavior of RDC was helping to tear apart the social fabric, we should not do social harm in a different way by putting people out of work. RDC employed about 200 people in Rochester, a part of the country that was ravaged, like so many others, by the opioid crisis. Our hope was that it could clean up its act and become a decent corporate citizen. There were no solo practitioners at SDNY. Everything happened because of teamwork, and the drug cooperative case was a great illustration of that. The civil part of the case was handled by Jacob Bergman and Jeffrey Powell in the civil division. Stephanie Lake, Louis, quote unquote, Tony Pellegrino, Nicholas Ruse, and Alexandra Rothman, all of the narcotics unit, were the attorneys involved on the criminal side. The case was supervised by Sean Crowley and Ian McGinley, co-chiefs of the narcotics unit. We partnered on this case, as we did with so many, with the New York office of the Drug Enforcement Administration, which was led by Raymond Donovan. Ray was a great friend to our office and to me. We saw eye to eye on big issues, which included the need to fight this raging opioid epidemic with every tool we had. I want to say this to you. The Holy Quran says their parable is that of one who kindles a fire. And when it illumines all around him, then Allah takes away their light of understanding of how to solve it. You see, you cannot start a fire in one room in your house and close the door and think that that fire going to just stay in there. That fire going to spread through your whole house. You messed up when you started selling drugs and putting them in the black community. You started that fire in your own home. And you didn't have sense enough to know that it was going to spread to your families, to your children. I received several presentations and briefings on the RDC cases over a period of about 6 months. New evidence and leads would develop, and the case continued to get stronger. When I was briefed on the investigation in March 2019 in a room filled with the executive staff, criminal and civil assistant attorneys, and the DEA agents, I had no hesitation over what we should do about Dowd. Bring criminal charges against him as we would any drug kingpin. There is a concept in criminal law called conscious avoidance. It is intentionally turning a blind eye to criminal conduct in order to not be held responsible for it. We believed that Dowd's behavior met that standard and in fact exceeded it. That's the same with William Barr when he was looking at what Donald Trump was doing. The evidence pointed to someone who was fully aware he was breaking the law, should have known the harm he was doing, and yet continued down the same path. According to the indictment, he was repeatedly warned that one of the company's biggest customers, a pharmacy in Staten Island, appeared to be a pill mill selling massive amounts of painkillers, in particular the highly addictive fentanyl spray substance. A compliance officer emailed him that the increasingly large shipments were taking RDC to a point, quote, unquote, to a point where we may not want to go. Dowd said to keep on selling to them. It was a big account. You know, when you make fast money, this is the one thing that people don't recognize when they say man is living life in the fast lane. When you know, fast lane simply means you making fast money and spending it just as fast. Because you know, most people that's making money in a unlawful way, they can't put it in the bank for fear that the red flag gonna go up of where's all this money coming from? Do you understand? And so what do? They spend it fast. They get rid of it fast. So he ain't never got enough because he got to spend it as fast as he make it. Do you understand? Unless he's laundering it, as they say. But anyway, it don't take long to figure out what's going on with these people because their minds are shallow. You think the earth is deep. The earth is not but 7,926 miles in diameter. If you drill 7,926 miles, you drill a hole straight through the earth. You call that deep? The solar system is much deeper. The universe is much deeper than the solar system. To show you that if you got all of the knowledge that you can get out of the earth, you still ain't got no deep mind. You got a very shallow mind. So it don't take long to figure you out. Solomon even told you, you ain't got nothing new. Everything you doing have been done. Do you understand? You living for pleasure. And after a while, haven't you noticed? People don't never realize that as you get high that first time, the second time, after a while, it don't feel the same. You need more. Do you understand? The body is building up a resistance to that poison you putting in it. Not to mention, as the body builds a resistance to it, the body starts reflecting what you're doing to it. If you're a beautiful woman, your beauty starts to fade. Do you understand? A handsome man, your beauty starts to, your appearance starts to change. And you start looking like something wrong with you. You understand? Because the body was made to reflect the mind. Anyway, let me see here. Where did I leave off? But we made the decision that even as we pursued its chief executive, we would not pursue actions that would shut down the. No, I read that already. What? According to the indictment, he was repeatedly warned that one of the company's biggest customers, a pharmacy in Staten Island, I read that already. Let me see. Dowd said to keep selling it. Let's see. Dowd said to keep on selling it to them. It was a big account. Yeah, he needed that money. You understand? The money was going out as fast as he was taking it in. You understand? Man, this is. I grew up around fast money. People that was doing that. I knew people who was living fast, and they spend that money fast as making it, man. Do you understand? So it says the head of sales at RDC reached out with a more generalized alert about the pharmacies they were supplying. Quote, "We have some very suspicious customers," unquote, he wrote. But nothing stopped Dowd. RDC's finances grew right along with the burgeoning opioid crisis. In 2013, here's a man destroying his country, destroying his people, and all he can think about is profiting from it. That's what inviting God out of your life does to you. As they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things that are not convenient. That's what's happening. They chasing the dollar when it's already clear that the Russian ruble ain't worth nothing. Everybody trying to get the dollar, and they trying to destroy the government that backs the dollar. And when they do that, the dollar won't be worth nothing. I mean, it's rich. In 2013, its revenues were about $700 million. By 2017, they had increased to $2 billion. Over the 4-year period, sales of oxycodone pills increased 9-fold, from 4.7 million to 42.2 million. Fentanyl went up even more, from 63,000 doses to 1.3 million doses. Dowd was financially rewarded. His compensation doubled in that stretch to $1.5 million. The day after I announced the RDC Now, let me tell you something about it. Just that this principle about the hog, the more you feed him, the more he eats. This look, a man who is following his desires. Desire does not get less and less as you. I mean, just think about it. Now, why do you think people they buy a car, then they get money to buy more? If he really loved cars, next thing you know, every time he see a new car out or whatever, he got a whole. Batman had a garage full of cars. Huh? You remember that? I mean, people they collect things. You know, he becomes a addict of collecting things, and so he just buy this and buy that and buy that because nothing satisfies him. The thrill is not having it. The thrill for them is getting it. You know, I mean, and once they got it, it loses its appeal. It loses its real fascination because there's nothing to be fascinated about anymore because it's in the garage. It's I got it. I mean, so the only joy he gets then is when he can bring some friends over and watch the desire in them to have those things. Do you understand? Okay. The day after I announced the RDC endowed charges, President Trump spoke at the RX Drug Abuse and Heroin Summit in Atlanta, a large conference held to address the opioid crisis. He touted his administration's actions to reduce the oversupply of opioids and highlighted the RDC case, stating that, quote, earlier this week, the United States filed criminal charges against the sixth largest drug wholesaler for illicit distribution of opioids because we are holding Big Pharma accountable, unquote. RDC filed for bankruptcy in 2020, but continued to operate according to the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Legal fees associated with defending itself from multiple lawsuits filed by survivors of opioid deaths imperiled its finances. The $20 million fine it agreed to in the settlement was among the obligations it was not meeting. It still owed half of that and had defaulted on a $2 million installment payment. A company statement at the time said it had not been able to afford to buy, quote, unquote, sufficient inventory to meet customer demand. There was one element of its previous inventory of drugs it was no longer seeking to purchase at all. Opioids. It already made the decision to stop selling them entirely. Dowd was tried in January 2022. One of the prosecution witnesses was an opioid addict who poignantly testified through tears about her addiction, which began with prescriptions from a dirty doctor for oxycodone that she filled at an RDC supplied pharmacy. In his closing, Nicholas Ruse argued that while RDC's drugs were making people sick, quote, what made Larry Dowd ill was losing money, unquote. After a 2-week trial and 2 days of deliberations, the jury convicted Dowd of leading a drug distribution conspiracy and defrauding the DEA. He is facing up to a life in up to life in prison. So I guess at this time he hadn't been sentenced. So maybe we'll see what the end of that was. Chapter 15. Next will be prescription payoffs. So, yeah, I guess some of the doctors was hooking them, getting them hooked on this stuff so that they could make money and kickbacks by the people that they got hooked on. Do you understand? Whatever happened to the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm? What is the point of a man who has given his desires the mastery over him? Remember, the natural mind is the devil. Let that sink in. The natural mind is the devil. That's the first, remember, it says, we created man of sounding clay, of black mud, fashioned into shape. And the jinn we created before. We created first. Of intensely hot desire. Of intensely hot fire. Huh? How do you know when somebody intensely desires something? When a man go to rob a bank, he intensely desires money. And lots of it. Huh? Go and have dominion over the earth and subdue it. So his mind, the mind that was put in him, was the desire to be controlling everything. So he never got enough. And so he still ain't got enough. Do you understand? And the only thing to put out that fire is living water. Do you understand? You see, look, man, you ever walked across a carpet and touched the doorknob and saw fire shoot out your hand? Fire and water is right here inside of each of us. And I reckon the only reason we don't spontaneously combust is because of the water that's in us. I mean, we stay hot, 98.6 degrees. That's a hot, you go outside, if it's 90 degrees, it's hot to you. Is that right? If it gets to 98, you want to find someplace cool. That's stroke weather. I didn't hear you. So, man, we full of fire. There's all kind of electrical activity going on in our body. Electricity ain't number fire. So you have to remember that the first mind that was put in us is called devil, deviser of illusion. We look at things and we don't fully comprehend what we're looking at. What hasty. We created man in haste, in a state of haste. That's why so many people are dying from exposure to asbestos. Because we saw one of its benefits as a species here, man, hey, this stuff won't burn. We can make lots of money off of this. We can make stuff out of it and it's fireproof. Then come out later on after you done got it all in the ships We got it everywhere and find out it's killing you. Just breathing the dust of it is killing you. Huh? Now, when did they find that out? When did these pharmaceutical companies find out that this drug was addictive? They knew it a long time before we did. Made lots of money off of it, too. It's the same with the other stuff. So the mind that you have is it's like a cancer. That natural mind of yours that fills you with desire for everything. It's like a cancer. And if it is not operated on and brought under into subjection, you are going to spontaneously combust. You burning yourself up. Your sins have made you like the wick on a candlestick. I should say on a candle. When the wax, as the wax is burning down and melting, the wick is being burned up. You do know that, right? You see? So the education that you've been being taught is weak education, weak ed. So it's like everything else that grows up out of the earth. It goes up, then it falls down. It rises, then it falls. It succeeds, then it fails. When you gain what you thought would satisfy you, you find out that it was just vanity. No big thing. So anyway, it's late. Anybody have a question? Is there a problem? See you back there looking all around. What's wrong? Okay. Does anyone have a question on anything I said? Nobody typing that? Okay. Yes, it is a. Then we're going to put a pin in there. We finished right at 11. That's 10:58. But you all can go on HBO and you can get that year one. They got trailers of it on YouTube. Beg your pardon? Yeah, year one, a political odyssey. And I thought it was very, pretty. It was well done. And as far as this world goes, they don't see what I see. So naturally, they said some things that were not quite accurate. But, for the most part, I thought it was put together pretty good. So you got a unique country here. It's worth trying to save. is worth trying to preserve. Because with all of its faults, the ideals that it still purports to believe in are worth pursuing. If the goal is noble, then you don't stop seeking to achieve that goal simply because some are not really up to it. You keep trying. Don't give up on yourself. I tell my followers all the time, if you don't walk away from me, I'm not going to walk away from you. I will never leave you in the lurch. If ain't nobody else with you, I'm with you. Just don't turn on me. You ain't got to worry about me turning on you. I ain't going to turn on you. If I say I'm your friend for better or for worse. I'm your friend. As long as I see you trying to do what is right, I'm going to be your friend. And I'm going to help you as much as I can. So, all right. You know, I have found the best way to not worry about yourself is to get involved with what's troubling other people and be concerned about them. If you try to take care of others, there's a song that they had in church. You can't be God-given. I witness that every day. I'll be walking with a believer or talking with a believer and trying to figure out things for that, how I can help believers. And new knowledge is always coming to me to help them. President Kennedy said that statement, and I'll always remember it. He said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." In other words, it's the same thing. Put others before yourself. That is what a leader is supposed to do. That's what fathers are supposed to do. George Washington put the United States before himself. Nathan Hale, was it? That said, the only regret I have is that I don't have but one life to give for my country. He didn't die begging for his life. He died at the hands of people who were fighting for an unjust cause. And he had found a cause that he thought was worth living for. He found a reason for living. Which means once he found a reason for living, which is something that most men wake up in the morning and never have, a reason why they should keep living. So at least he reached something that other people live a whole lifetime never reach. They live for the sake of life and not for the sake of a cause that's bigger than themselves. These are the things that growing up here helped me to realize. I think I'm as good as any white man, or a brown or yellow man that loves his people. And if they was willing to die for theirs, I am willing to die for mine. So, but the difference in me and a lot of y'all is that I don't feel the need to harm you in order to help mine, because I know that that does not help mine. It puts mine in jeopardy. But when I do no harm, I don't care how you lie to yourself and make up falsehoods to tell yourself. I know that you can't face me and justifiably do me harm. Because I'm no threat to any of you. You a threat to yourself. And I'm the only one that can save you from your sins against yourself. You don't even have sense enough to know that the wrong that you're doing is killing you. Anyway, may Allah bless us who believe in and accept His word and who hunger and thirst for His righteousness, and keep us safe and in our right minds, and grant to each of us a peaceful and pleasant night's rest and sleep, and a happy, peaceful, and pleasant morning's rise. May Allah's Salam Alaikum.
This session